Hello friends, today we are looking at perfect squares and square roots. So we know that a square is a shape and a square has the special qualifications that all the sides are equal. So when we're thinking about the area of a square, it is the side times the side, or side squared. So a perfect square, truly every square is perfect, but a perfect square integer is the integer squared or multiplied by itself. 5 times 5 would be 25. 25 is considered a perfect square because it is 5 times itself. So 25 would be a perfect square. A square root is the number of one of the two equal factors of that number. So for example, the square root of 25 is 5. Why? Because if I think of going backwards, or the inverse of squaring a number, the square root is taking and trying to figure out what number multiplied by itself would give you that as a product. So 5 times 5 is 25, so the square root of 25 is 5. This is also considered a perfect, so it's a square root. So over here on the right, I've given you a chart of perfect squares and square roots up through 10 times 10, or up through the square root of 100. To estimate square roots, and that's something else that we are going to do, you would find out which two perfect squares the number is between, and then you would kind of just estimate if it's closer to one or the other. So let's try that out. We have example 1. So the square root of 36. So what number multiplied by itself gives me 36? Well, I could go back up to that chart, or I could think about my multiplication tables, and 6 times 6 is 36. So the square root of 36 is 6. So my reasoning would be 6 times 6 is 36. And the square root of 1, well, this one's kind of interesting because we don't normally take the square root of 1, but the square root of 1 is always 1, and that is because 1 times 1 equals 1. The square root of 7, let's see, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9. So if 2 times 2 is 4 and 3 times 3 is 9, and there's no integer between 2 and 3, that means that I have to estimate the square root of 7. So would 7 be closer to 4, or would it be closer to 5? Or sorry, excuse me, closer to 4 or closer to 9? Well, 7 would be closer to 9. So it's somewhere around like 2.6 or 2.7, something like that, because halfway between 2 and 3 would be 2.5, or 2 and 5/10. And it's a little bit more than halfway. Let's go ahead and look at example 4, the square root of 75. So thinking about 5 times, no, okay. 6 times 6 is 36. That's still way too small. 7 times 7 is 49. Okay, still too small. 8 times 8 is 64. That's closer. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81. So 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. So again, I don't have a perfect square here, so I have to estimate. Remember those little squiggly lines? Squiggly equal sign means to estimate. So I have to think, is 75 closer to 64 or 81? Yep, it's closer to 81. So it is going to be closer to 9, but it's not 9. It has to be 8 and something. So 8 and, let's see, from 64 to 81 is 7. From 75 to 81, oh, excuse me, 17, is 6. So that's a little more than half. So somewhere around 8 and 6/10. All right, so let's go ahead and slide down. You have a you try 1 and you try 2. See if you can figure out the square root of 9 and the square root of 35. And we're back. How did you do? All right, so let's see. Did you recognize that 9 is 3 times 3, or 3 squared? 3 squared is 9, so the square root of 9 is equal to 3. And did you recognize that 35 doesn't have a square root that is precise? There is no perfect square that will equal 35, but you probably remembered that 6 squared is equal to 36, which is close. 5 squared would be 25, so it would be between these two. So this would be an estimated 5, probably and 9/10. All right. Any questions that you have, make sure you ask in class tomorrow. Check and try those questions at the bottom of the page, and I will see you in class. Have a good day.